tahu.
Do you have stuff to show, Demon, or do you just want to launch into it?
Yeah, I got stuff to show, but maybe Witsit, if you want to do your intro first, or your whole side, I guess.
Okay. We're good, Shane. You want me to start talking?
Yeah, we've been good. We actually streamed 10 minutes ago for the first start.
There's no
What's
announcer.
the title of the debate again?
Creation and morality.
Okay. All right, cool. So, basically, my position is that it's logically bankrupt and not a tenable position to claim that morality is subjective. In order to claim that morality is subjective, you would have to, of course, deny the very clear-cut scenario in which there are objectively wrong things such as rape, murder of an innocent child, etc., etc. We all innately know that there are things that are just wrong. There are certainly gray areas, but that is not the point. To claim that morality is subjective, you'd have to say there's a scenario in which rape is good, not just not bad, but actually good, based on the eye of the beholder, basically, which I consider to be untenable. Now, this is a philosophical discussion. I certainly cannot scientifically prove any of this. It's a philosophy, but yeah, it's just illogical to me to not acknowledge a linear code of ethics, an objective code of morality. And of course, that leads into the next part of it. If there is objective morality, which again, I think we all innately understand, then how did that get here? Well, how did any linear code of ethics or objective morality get here in the first place? What put it in place? And as to creationism, I mean, the necessary antecedent to creation is a creator. So, of course, what's on the table is this a creation? And of course, there's just basic logical necessity here. Like, for one, in order to have this place, something had to predate it, if you will. Something had to place it here. There's really never even been a philosophy ever proposed that doesn't at least acknowledge this, right? Whether it be the Big Bang or whatever. And of course, the pre-Bang originally proposed was a pre-existing energy, which is the same as a creative force, an omnipresent creative force that exists outside of the confinement of matter, space, and time, is a concession to creationism. There's really no logically viable alternative as I see it. And of course, this place is intrinsically ordered from the small to the big. We have reoccurring characteristics from the small micro scale all the way up. And if this place is in such an order, then what placed the order? In order to have the order, or the logos, as some call it, then something had to place it there. So yeah, the simple fact that we know that the metaphysical realm exists via intuition, dreams, consciousness, many other things, shows that something's outside of material confinement, and that would also solidify the idea that something outside the material confinement actually placed this material here. So that's about it. Necessary antecedent to creation is creation, or to a creation is a creator. Personification aside, some type of intelligent designing force is the prerequisite to have what we experience. And objective morality is the only logically tenable position, as I see it. And that's about it. That's my position. I don't care.
It's probably going to be much shorter than that. Just give me a second here.
Sweet.
Thank you for your presentation. That was very good.
Oh, no problem, man.
Are you streaming too, Demonstryde?
No, I'm just recording on my end.
Oh.
Okay. Let me know if you can see that just fine.
Yeah.
Yep, good to go. Front and
right.
center.
All right, so creation and morality. Where do you get your morals from? I think this is the question we're probably going to dive a little deeper into. So, how did we get here? Like the creation part, the Big Bang. Did everything just burst out of nothingness into everythingness as we see it? Was it created by some all knowing, omniscient entity? Some state it could have lasted forever. Is it possible that our universe is in a constant cycle of creation, destruction, and rebirth? So, my position is that morality is objective. It's possible that it's just another part of our reality. We can describe what is moral like we can describe the attributes of a triangle. So, here's an experiment called the Milgram experiment. This is where they take two subjects. One of them is really only the subject. They both pull straws, and one of them gets the person doing the test and the person receiving the test. Person doing the test was always meant to do the test. So they're asked by somebody in a lab coat to then read off the sheet and ask somebody in the other room to repeat what they're saying and memorize it. If at any time they get it wrong, they administer a shock. So the test subjects are also shown what the lowest dosage of this shock feels like. The dosages actually go all the way up from 1 to lethal. And through the experiments, 65% of them took the shock to its lethal dose. So that's 35% of them chose to stop before they got there. But 65% of people went all the way to lethal dose because somebody in a white coat told them to. Even though some of them knew it was wrong, some of them were even in distress, they still took it to the end. And what they find is it's always easier to pass the blame for an immoral act if you can put the blame on somebody else. Here's a rat experiment about morality or social observations you find in just animals. This is where they're given a lever, and every time they press it, they get a piece of food, but the rat in the cage next to them gets shocked. And some of the rats would go without eating because they knew it was causing pain to other rats. Here's one done with bonobos. Dr. D. Wall's many experiments that bring out the sense of fairness in chimps. He had two chimps in adjacent cages. One chimp would get to choose from two different tokens. If he chose one color, he would get a treat, but the adjacent chimp would get none. If he chose the other color, both would get treats. Very quickly, the chimp controlling the treats would choose the tokens that brought treats to both of them. Somehow, that chimp knew what was morally right. So, does God write the morality on all animals then? What about ducks? If that's the case, why do ducks rape? The mallard duck is the only animal who reproduces exclusively by gang rape and have been known to partake in homosexual necrophilia. Female duck vaginas actually contain multiple dead ends to help protect them against duck rape. Why do otters rape other otters and baby seals? Why do some animals seem to have moral actions while other animals blatantly do immoral acts? And here's where the argument might indefinitely lead to is I'd suggest that your God's morality is subjective. It's not objective for him. Like in the cases of adultery, biblical hero Abraham impregnates his wife's servant, Genesis 16:2. Animal cruelty, Jesus sends 2,000 pigs plunging into the sea where they choke to death, Mark 5:13. Anti-family values, Jesus proclaims, For I am come to set man against his father and daughter against her mother, Matthew 10:35. Violence, and we took to all his cities and utterly destroyed the men and the women and the little ones, Numbers 31:17. Women abuse, biblical hero Moses dictates, but all the women, children that have not known a man by lying with him, keep alive, for yourselves. Numbers 31:18. Slavery. Bible gives rules concerning a slave's obedience to his owner. Ephesians 6:5. There's other passages for that one as well. Incest. Lot's daughter get their father drunk and both get pregnant by him. Genesis 19:36. Murder of children. Happy shall he be that taketh and dasheth thy little ones against stones. Psalm 137:9. So God's morality is subjective to whatever he feels he needs to do at the time. The morality I understand, the one that where murder and rape is never okay, is just, right. It's good. But in God's eyes, it doesn't appear to be. So, come on, people. You can be more moral than your God. Thanks for playing.
How dare you use my phrase?
So I think that's probably the creation part. I'm sorry, what was that?
I like your background, Demonstryde. That was awesome.
That was actually a picture I took myself.
No, the background of I think that was a Google Slides presentation. Nice choice.
All right. We just jump into it now, I'm guessing, huh, Shane?
Yeah. I think you got enough to understand each other's position and go for it. I'm sure you heard some shit you want to critique in his presentation.
Yeah. All right, so let's start with this. Interesting that you acknowledge objective morality. So I will certainly give you that, as a significant amount of people seeming on your side of this argument do not think morality is objective, which is insane to me. So that saves a bit of time. But one thing I did say in my little opener is that the personification of that creative force is an entirely different discussion. You did bring up the Bible, and I actually do stand behind the scriptures, but I can run through these pretty easily and show that they're all pretty grossly misrepresented. So, for example, you got the Bible gives rules concerning a slave's obedience to his owner. The Bible says that if you are to kidnap a man against his will and enslave him and force him into labor, you should be stoned and put to death. It strictly prohibits slavery. And the only time that it says that it's okay to take a man against his will is whenever you are actually in war against that person, as opposed to killing them like they would kill you. You show them mercy and capture them. Other than that, it is an agreement you come into where, say, you loan someone money, you allow them 7 years to pay it off where they work for you. And if they don't pay it off in 7 years, you let them go, even if they still owe you money. You have to treat them just as well as the rest of your family, if not better. And it's a consensual agreement you come into. So, yeah, that's kind of a typical misrepresentation. You have the murder.
Nonsense.
Oh, yeah, we can take it one at a time if you want.
Yeah. Oh, that wasn't me, but I would like to jump in.
Yeah.
Right. So when you look at, let's say, Exodus 21, where it says, get your slaves from the heathen that surround you. Why would it seem like it's telling you where to buy slaves from, not just, where you get them in case like you're in a fight?
I would have to look at this specifically in context, but again, it says that the person has to agree to work for you, that you can't go take a man against his will. And so if someone's put into slavery against their will, now back in the day, what people would do is they would like sign up, if you will, to be auctioned off effectively to pay for their debts, basically, to loan money to provide for their family. And he's saying like, okay, go get these people, whatever. And he's told, actually, if you go get those people to work for you, then you have to treat them better than your family, or just as good as your family. So it specifically says, like in the scenario that those men were captured against their will and forced into, sold into slavery, it says that it's strictly prohibited that you have any quote unquote slave against his will.
Well, like here, Exodus 21, I'll read right from the scripture for you. So if you buy a Hebrew servant, he is to serve you for 6 years. So, all right, so the rules are set out where you can buy them, right? And in the 7th year, you shall go free unless you give him a wife. And then he says, but I love my master and I will not go free. Then go take him to the awl and you give him a pierced ear. If a man sells his daughter as a servant, she is not to go free as male servants do. If she does not please the master who he has selected for himself, he must let her be redeemed. So it seems objectively that women in the Bible are property. Would you disagree or agree?
Okay, so for one, to address the other point again, like they're not sold as in like an object that you go buy against their will. It says that if you take them in and make them a slave against his will, you should be put to death. So those people said, okay, I can't pay for my family. I need a loan. Someone would say, okay, here's 7 years of wages so that you can pay for your family, but you have to work it off. You could go buy their debt effectively, as they consensually agreed to that. And then he actually says you have to go take them and treat them better than anyone else would in that situation. You have to treat them just as your family, and then they can leave if they want. When it comes to women specifically, if you're going to take a woman as your wife, you have to go and talk to the father. You have to come to an agreement where in which say there is a little bit of barter and trade type of vibe. I will concede that, where they're like, okay, what I want from you if you want my daughter to get my approval is I want 3 goats and 2 things of silver and blah, blah, blah. And of course, in that scenario, the woman has to agree to be with that man. These are what the scriptures specifically say. It says that it is not property. In fact, you should die for your wife. When it says like take the women in the other cities, it's saying that when you go in there, if these women are virgins, you can bring them back and then they can be married, not against their will. Again, specifically, it says if you take a woman and have sex with her against her will, you should be put to death. These are just pretty typical gross misrepresentations. You have like the whole kill every man, woman, and child in the scriptural context, actually, which will sound crazy. They were not humans, they were genetic hybrids. So it sounds crazy for sure, but these are misrepresentations. And I would happily debate you about this, but I do think that this falls under the specific personification of God, meaning not so much the question of creationism in itself, but the personification of that creative force. As you can tell, I will happily defend it as I have gone down this route myself, and that's why I am in the current position I am. These are all misrepresentations and strawman arguments, but I think the bigger argument is there a creative force that put everything into place, right?
Yeah, that would make all of this stuff actually have meaning, but I guess I've not seen that. Well, we'll go through a couple more scriptures then. What about an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth? Do you think that is useful, or do you think it's moral, I guess? Because I would agree it is.
I don't see a problem with that. I think that would be a very efficient deterrent at morally reprehensible behavior.
Right. So that goes for that until you get to Exodus 21, where it's anyone who beats their male or female slave with the rod must be punished if the slave dies as a direct result. They are not to be punished if the slave recovers after a day or two, since the slave is their property. So eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth doesn't work in that sense, and they're still human on human there.
Yeah, when you say that they're their property, again, they agreed to be in that situation. Understand that? They have to agree to do it. If you put them in slavery against their will, you're supposed to be put to death. So this is a huge detail that consistently gets left out. Like to say the scriptures are pro-slavery is pretty insane when it actually says, as we define slavery, if you do that, you should die. You should be put to death.
Do you have the verse for that?
Yeah, I can find it.
Okay. Because later on it says, like, if you end up killing your slave, then you're to be turned away from the city. But like, let's say you take a tooth out or an eye, you pay them for the tooth, and the eye sets them free, but you don't get to take out your master's eye. Again, it's somehow signing a contract now means that you can literally be somebody's property. And in this book, it says it's moral to do that. And do you believe that it's moral to be able to own another person and maim them?
Real fast. Exodus 21:16 says, "He who kidnaps a man and sells him, or if he is found in his hand, shall surely be put to death." So, it specifically prohibits enslaving people against their will.
I think that's going for enslaving his people, and because he tells you where to buy slaves from. Don't buy those slaves, buy these slaves.
No. It says a man, period. If you steal a man against their will. It says that the people that you go and buy the slaves from, they're already being sold into slavery. And this is because they have come into an agreement. They came into an agreement that
Well,
they
they're
could
not
pay
men;
for
they're
their family.
heathens. Yeah,
Yeah,
they're not men; they're heathens, and neither are the. Oh, sorry. I think there's
it's
a
not that
little
they're not
delay here.
men. It's just that they're, immoral degenerates.
But they don't have the same rights.
But they do have rights. They chose to be a slave, dude.
Oh man.
I don't.
Okay.
Dude? How is there not a clear distinction between someone forcibly being kidnapped against their will and put into slavery, and someone approaching you and saying, "Look, it's hard out here, bro. Can I borrow enough money to pay for my family for the next 7 years, and I will work it off if you'll front me the money up front." And then you have to treat them just as good as the rest of your family, and you have to let
Right.
them go after 7 years, even if they haven't paid off their debt. That's
And
distinctly
if you
different.
cut their arm off, then what? Because it doesn't seem like the morality is still holding true to that. Just because you can now own them like property, that for me it falls flat. Like even though you have a contract with them, there's no point at which my employer can just cut my arm off.
Okay, yeah. So, like, it's say that you're in war with someone and they're like killing your people. It says instead of you killing them, you enslave them. You can enslave them instead of killing them, even though they'll kill you. And basically, I don't know what the specific scenarios are about cutting your arm off. I mean, like, I guess if you steal something or whatever it is. I mean, sure, that's kind of
Because the
intense.
book points to it and says that if you do this to your slaves, if you maim them, like they'll be able to go free if they're not able to walk, and if you take their eye, they're able to go free. But other than that, beat the shit out of them. You're fine as long as they're able to walk around or they don't lose a tooth or an eye.
I don't know. It doesn't say other than that. It doesn't condone you beating anyone. I mean, again, I have to go
It
look into
literally
the specifics.
says.
All right, man.
Oh, sorry.
Look. Here's the deal. You want to know my actual position? Is that the scriptures are heavily messed with, and I have to go read the Hebrew version of everything. I do know that you just regurgitated the mainstream atheistic talking points against the Bible, and I've already shown that many of them are grossly misrepresented, as is a slavery thing. If the specifics of like how to handle the slave, I would have to go read it in context. I would be very naive to think that all of a sudden this is the first part, the first verse you've brought up that is actually properly defined in context when every other one is not. But I would look into it. I'm not going to say anything about it. I don't know all the specifics in the Hebrew and what it actually says in the context. And I think a lot of it's been messed with and it's been grossly tainted and manipulated. So, I mean, the conversation is much more about like, is there objective morality and creationism? Like, is this place created? And then when you get into the personal personification of it, that's a whole other thing. I guess your argument hinges upon the idea that if you're claiming that there is a creator, then morality would be subjective to him, right? I mean,
That's what you're claiming. No, I'd say that's what you're claiming, because it seems like God can. Because I can look at these acts and be like, these seem very immoral. A lot of things in the Bible, go and kill all these people. You've justified it by saying, well, they aren't even human, and it doesn't say that in there. Like, show me where it says that they aren't human. It says these people. Okay, verse, please.
Yeah, so in like Enoch and many other texts, it describes, if you actually look at the group of people, they come from the group of people that stem from the Nephilim or the Raphaim, which come from the fallen ones that were mated with man and women, and they were genetically hybrid. That's why they also killed the animals, because the animals were also genetically manipulated, which the mainstream church will never teach all that. But look, here's what I'm trying to say, man. You agree that this place could be created without the Bible being true, right?
I don't. So the word creation, there's intention behind that. I don't know if there is a creator.
And that's
like I
fine,
said,
but
it
you
could
agree
be
that like a creator is not exclusive to the Bible,
right?
So that's I mean, like, it's not that I wouldn't debate you about this, but I would have maybe like went and got the Hebrew beforehand. I'm not just gonna like constantly like look up every verse. I mean, I did quickly look one up and show you that what I said is very true. I'm not just making anything up. That's why I refuse to kind of defend the whole how you beat your slave or not, because I know there's missing context there almost assuredly. But I think before we got there, we're kind of putting the cart before the horse, like arguing about the specifics of a popular claim about a deity. right? As opposed to just like, is there a creator?
Right. We can go there. So, what convinced you of a creator?
Yeah, like I said in the opener, like the fact that there is objective morality, which is the like seemingly the only logical way to even interpret it. Um, like who put that objective standard in place? I think you then kind of conflated man and animal. I of course just say that there is a huge distinction between man and animal.
Well, does God give animals morality, like the ones that can do moral acts, or are they just getting it coincidentally?
I think that morality to some extent is built within animals as well, but it's distinctly different than that of man. Like to kind of say, well, look, this monkey will get the treat for his buddy too, but this duck rapes someone. It's like, okay, monkeys also rape. And I guess much more ducks, it's like a common practice. I get that, but animals are different. Like animals will just go eat to eat. They don't even if you're a newborn of another species, they'll just eat you. They don't care that you're defenseless and newborn. They're going to eat you because animals are different than we are. And this is one of the grossest aspects of evolution, where they try to blur those lines as if we are animals to kind of justify the lack of moral objectivity and accountability.
You ever seen that moose that helps flip the turtle over? Like, why did he flip the turtle over? He wasn't going to eat him. He wasn't
Oh,
even.
yeah, he wanted to help the turtle, bro.
Okay, so you think that because we can like look at things like rape and murder and say that's objectively wrong, you then say there must be a creator that did that. Why must there be for that? Why couldn't that be a thing that just happens? It's part of the framework.
There's just a random, chaotic, purposeless existence that has a linear code of ethics and like objective right and wrong and order that seems illogical to me.
Okay. I've talked about chaos theory before, but are you you know what it is and whatnot? How you can have a chaotic system and patterns emerge out of the system even though it's chaos?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if we were gonna say like what created everything, like so before the Big Bang, like the theory is uh, chaotic soup of whatever, just massive energy. Um, I like for me, I don't know what could even what it does. It is it just a Big Bang that keeps happening? Like I don't feel a need for any intention yet because the mystery is so profound. I don't like pointing a finger and being like, well, it's a God that did it. Obviously, I think ends the fun for me.
Okay. Well, but for one, chaos theory is highly specific to initial conditions. So it's like that's grossly misrepresented too. People just throw the term chaos theory out there like, "Oh, something can be chaotic." And then it's all dependent upon initial conditions, right? Like as to how much order or if order in really any way can even be attained. And everyone's heard the idea of like, taking the world's most complicated or complex watch, taking it all apart to the littlest pieces, putting it in a mason jar, shaking it up, it doesn't become the watch, right? I mean, sure you can say in theory you can get
Yeah,
some
but
order
that's
out of
entropy.
chaos, but
Yeah, but that's entropy that you're doing. That's entropy, not a form of chaos.
well, I mean, all those little pieces in that jar bouncing around is chaotic. And it's never going to just randomly order itself into like the world's most complex watch. But
How
this is
long
why
are
we
you going to
say
shake
things
it
take
around
really.
for?
There you go. See, then they become they have the unfossifiable out of just an infinite amount of time, which is ironic. That's worse than the God of the Gaps because it's just like it doesn't even have logic behind it. It just says, oh well, anything can happen with enough time. But I think that like when it comes to the Big Bang is the big part, right? You said there's like a soup or something and massless energy or whatever. Like where did all that come from? Like
Yeah, I
I
don't know.
think the fundamental difference is like creationism acknowledges that there's some like initial source that exists outside of the confinement of space, matter, and time that was able to put it into place. So it answers the question. It helps you get rid of the regression fallacy.
But how do you know that that's the case? Like, you must be taking that on faith, or you've got evidence to back that claim up.
Well, my fundamental first piece of evidence is logic in and of itself. Like there is not a logical alternative. Can you offer me a logically viable alternative that doesn't require the infinite regression fallacy?
Well, I would say that pointing to a God is infinitely regressive. Where did the God come from?
That's what they always say, but that's why I pointed out that the creator is outside of the confinement of space, matter, and time,
Mm-hmm.
so it
But
doesn't
that's a
need to come
claim.
from
And do you
anywhere.
have? But so you can just poof any God you want into existence then to explain away the thing that we don't have evidence for.
You mean like you can just say billions of years?
Yeah, I could, but I wouldn't point to it and be like, it's gonna happen. I'd be like, it might. I'm not pointing to anything
See, it
and
doesn't
saying
make
it
sense
will
though.
happen.
I guess the argument is like, how does that make sense, right? Like if you're defending the Big Bang, like the person that proposed the Big Bang said there was a pre-existing energy, right? So I guess you're defending like a new version of the Big Bang, or are you saying there's a pre-existing energy? I don't.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It might be that um, maybe the universe continues to expand till it gets to a cold state, and then it fractals, and a new universe booms out of that, and everything starts again. Like it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. Who knows? I have
What
no idea.
causes the expansion, and what
I have no idea. It's fascinating though.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Both takes they end up like never in the history of mankind has anyone come up with a situation in which it doesn't require addressing this point, which is a pre-existing energy, right? So like when the Big Bang was proposed by a Catholic priest, albeit, right? Like he said there was a pre-existing energy, and for obvious reasons, right? And then if you say that there's a pre-existing energy that's not confined to space, matter, or time, and it's effectively intelligent, so that it can actually put this place into order. So like an omniscient, creative force of energy outside of space, matter, and time, you might as well just say God at that point.
Okay, well, but then why does God not require a pre-existing energy?
Because again, he's outside of the confinements of space, matter, and time. And so yeah, I know you could say that's convenient, but that's my point, is like we're left with this conundrum where the only logically viable explanation is something that's not limited to that confinement.
Well, I can follow the I can follow like the morality being objective if God created, but that's in this universe that you can point to him. But then when I ask about where he comes from, you push him away and you say, "Well, no, he's too far away for me to point to right now." But I can
No,
point
he's
to
just
this thing and say it's his and say it's from him.
I'm saying he's just ever existent. He's not confined to time. So a creative force not confined to time seems to be the only way to answer the question. I'm open to alternatives, but throughout the history of mankind, not one has ever been presented. So
Do you feel like you have to have an answer for that?
well, that's just what the debate's about. I think that philosophical mind of depth would certainly address this aspect of life, as opposed to just not applying logic to it at all and ignoring it. Certainly, when you're going to then build your entire worldview around it.
So like maybe when you said the metaphysical is something that's real, okay? Um, why is it not that the case that morality can be part of the same structure that thoughts are made of and whatnot, that technically aren't real, they're just part of a system?
Yeah, yeah. Who made the system though? Like, how does the system so specific and ordered, right? Like that, like a linear code of ethics is an ordered system. So like, what placed the order here? Like, how do you have a system of order?
Okay. I guess for me, if you're gonna point to a god, I'm always gonna say, well, where did he come from? Because if he's outside of time, that just means he always existed, like forever time,
Mhm.
for like that for me is insane. Like to think that's I can't even wrap my head around that.
Well, I agree. I agree with that. Like, I think you would have to say that in the scenario that there is a creator, you're not going to be able to wrap your mind around such an entity or being or force, right? It's
But if
intrinsically beyond our carnal grasp.
but I'd say it feels like you kind of have, because you're able to point to him and say that this reality is because of him. It's like it seems like you have some understanding of him.
I would say my understanding is anecdotal. That's why I think that keeping the personification of some type of creative force is a separate discussion. Like, yeah, I feel I have a bit of an understanding on a very rudimentary level due to anecdotal experience, personal. I think the creator's personable because of my personal experience, but that's completely anecdotal. It's much more just that like something has to exist. I mean, it's just a logical framework that actually acknowledges the problem. Most people say, "Oh, how could you ever know that?" And then they just knock the pieces off the board, and they run around with like an incoherent worldview of moral relativism and materialism. And like I said, the fact that we have metaphysical phenomena that can be pointed to shows you that material confinement is not all there is. And I cannot fully understand it. That's what I'm saying. I don't think that anyone could ever fully understand something that exists outside the confinement of space, matter, and time. How could you?
Okay, so it's not just morality that grounds your understanding of God. It's that there is the metaphysical. That's another layer to the onion, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And okay. Um why would why would we not be able to uh think about things in the metaphysical realm without a God?
Um, it's not really that it's without a god, uh, a creative force, and what the metaphysical realm shows is that something exists outside of material confinement. That's really the only part of it that's relevant as it pertains to this discussion. No theory or philosophy can be considered adequate if it is limited to materialism, because we know for a fact that can't be an adequate explanation. That's really all I'm saying.
Okay.
That's what humans want to do, right? We want to explain everything within what we can touch. The material world must be all that there is. So, and even that materialism has the problem of where the material come from, right? They just ignore it. But yeah, like consciousness, right? Where does consciousness reside?
Right. Yeah, cuz we don't know. Like that's still one of the
Yeah, no
questions,
one knows
but
that.
Well, we
do
know
you want
that
to
we have no evidence that it's within the material confinement, right? I mean,
well, cuz like if I scoop a little bit of my brain out and I'm still alive and like able to talk, like I'm definitely going to be changed. So, I like
yeah.
part of me, the metaphysical part of me would be contained, I think, in the network of my brain.
There's just all kinds of evidence for. Yeah, there's no doubt that your neural pathways is how you interpret lots of information, but like, is the brain and the mind the same thing? And is consciousness and the brain the same thing? Sure, materialists will say yes, but it's just a lack of depth with their yes, right? I mean,
Yeah,
there's all kinds of
I'd say
things that,
they're
like,
not.
even scientifically speaking, if energy cannot be created nor destroyed, it can only be transferred. So where does the energy come from?
Right, yeah, that leads all the way back to the Big Bang and the possibility that it's just always happened. Like the universe big bangs, it makes whatever state of physics it has for the time that it expands, and then it contracts again and big bangs again, and it keeps going, and it never was not. So I guess in the same sense, itself could be the creator, because we can't point to anything being created or destroyed. So the universe itself is its own creator.
Well, that's right. So like an all powerful creative force would be the one thing not confined to the first law. But like,
See, because I
say again.
oh sorry, I was just gonna say, like, I'd say that the whole thing itself would be the God, the creator, but I would just say there's not intention behind it.
Mm. So you get like specific ordered existence void of intention.
Well, what if that's the case? Okay, for the thing big banging, right? It's most likely not going to be experiencing time in the same way we are. It's probably going to be, happening, millions and billions of times per, second or whatever. So, who's to say it's making the same kind of universe each time? Maybe we're only here and it feels like forever while we're here, but this is just one instance of it.
Well, when you use the words experience and making, then you're invoking sentience or
Yeah,
intelligence.
no, yeah, I definitely was, yeah. But that's what I say is like the universe could itself be its own creator.
Okay, well, then that would still be a concession on the front of, like, intelligent design or intention. I mean, but even with that, it's like, where's the energy coming from? Like, it just always was and then decided to concentrate itself into material, and that would still mean it's outside of that. Whatever the source of the energy is for this Big Bang or this expansion, it must exist outside of this, like, alleged singularity that the Big Bang comes from, right?
Yeah,
Like,
I would think it's just happening mindlessly though. Like it doesn't have an intention, in my view.
but how would that make sense to you, right? Like, out of the 2 options, one being mindless without meaning, purpose, or intention, or one being specific, ordered, and intentional. Like, well, one makes much more sense, right? Like, one can explain order, where the other one's just kind of a grasp at straws on top of a grasp at straws.
I think the
Infinite
one
ad
that
hoc
I
regression.
think the one that's ordered, you would see less suffering
Oh,
if it
well,
was
that's a deep.
made.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a deeper question, but I disagree. I completely disagree. Like, you have 2 options. Either creation it has free will, or it does not. And it's easy to sit back over here without free will and be like, why does God let children get sick? Right? But it's usually always a byproduct of free will. Like the parents, what they did while the baby was in the womb, getting injected maybe 72 times before they're 3 probably doesn't help. But I'm just saying that there are a lot of byproducts of free will that are not particularly glamorous. The alternative would be that we are robots. And what would really be the purpose of life? So I see that the only way to have a purposeful life is to have free will, which means you must have a decision to make, which means you must have righteous and the alternative, or good and bad, right? As we speak with objective morality, you have to be able to choose
Do you
something. If
really
you don't have a
think?
decision, then
Do you really think that God would hurt a newborn based on the crimes of the parents?
I don't think God is hurting anyone. I think that the parents' actions have consequences. That's what I think. And I think it's very unfortunate. I think that the creator's really given us an incredible blessing in the sense that if you'll just fast and change your diet, you can get rid of almost anything. So he gave us a machine that's like incredible, and we call the body, but it is the human that makes the decision, and sometimes they have negative consequences. But again, what's the alternative? It's unfortunate, but no one ever addresses, well, what's the alternative? The alternative is a life without purpose at all. There is no other option.
And a life without purpose. So without a God, if without a creator making everything, you would say your life has no purpose.
It's not really that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that without the ability to freely make decisions, your life has no purpose.
Oh, okay.
You'd have to agree, right? I mean, the alternative is to be
No,
like a
yeah,
robot.
absolutely, yeah. But like, I mean, some would argue that every choice you make is not even a choice you're making. It's made 3 seconds previous in your brain, and it's all based on the shit around you.
Well, I think
I don't
we
know if
have
you buy
overwhelming
into any of
evidence
that.
that we have free will, right? I mean,
Have you heard about that at all? It's I think Sam Harris or someone had done a study where they were measuring somebody's brain and waiting to see when they made a decision, and then looking back at the scan and being able to tell that the decision was made long before they, part of their brain intended to start, moving or making action towards it.
I have not heard of that. It makes sense to me. There's certainly a transitionary period from subconscious to conscious decision making.
Interesting.
But I think the subconscious is still intuitively like your free will. Like, I think this gets into even deeper conversation. It's a cascading of profundity, right? But like, yeah, I
Hmm.
mean, then you get into spirit and soul and back to consciousness. And then what are the levels of consciousness? And, are you personally making decisions in your subconscious? Like when someone's choosing to lie, right? Like they have subconscious tells that they don't realize. So I think that it's kind of like this seesaw back and forth, the conscious and the subconscious, and that's a very deep thing. But sure, I guess someone could try to argue that there's no free will. I just think that we have an abundance of evidence that shows us that clearly we do have free will, and it's again just another ad hoc grasp at straws, like hypothetical that some scenario is that the Earth is nothing more than a giant illusion that makes us think that we have free will, but in fact everything is predetermined And this also, by the way, requires a designer. The idea of some type of
Well,
simulation predetermined requires someone making the determinations.
I'd claim maybe, you don't have free will in the religious sense with God, because he is omniscient, all-knowing. He knows everything you're going to do before you're even born. He lets you be born knowing, like me, I'm going to be an atheist and then die an atheist and then, suffer for not believing, okay? So I didn't have any free will in that scenario.
It's all part of the plan, man. Shit.
You're not going to actually die an atheist, in my opinion. You have a bit too much logic. But right now, you have a position in which you acknowledge objective morality and then try to simultaneously claim atheism. I think that you will soon find those do not cooperate. But anyway, what I'm saying is, knowing what's going to happen is not synonymous with controlling what happens. Right.
Okay. Let's see here. I actually
The
wrote down
common
a couple
conflation,
notes
but
earlier.
you acknowledge whether or not there's free will. I mean, if there's if there's decisions being made, then we have to have some decision maker.
Okay, but like, oh shit, how was I gonna bring that in? Would you feel like morality has changed as time went on and civilization shifted, or is it still completely the same as it was back in when it was written in Hebrew?
Yeah. I think that the morality existed long before Hebrew was even a language, and I think it was the beginning, the same at the beginning as it will be at the end. I think the only thing that's changed is subjective interpretations or applications, right? Like society has certainly changed as America thought it was cool to enslave people against their will, but slavery was
Well,
still bad,
they use the Bible to back that up and point to it being part
Yeah.
of the reasons they're doing it.
Which goes to show you how like a gross misrepresentation and misapplication of the scriptures is incredibly dangerous, and I am vehemently opposed to religion as a whole. The doctrine of men is the death of true morality. I know that may seem contradictory to you as I put weight into scripture seemingly written by men, but yeah,
Mhm.
I don't like religious interpretations or dogma or doctrine. I'm saying that if the tree falls in the forest, I don't have to see it. The tree just fell, and the tree still fell, whether or not I know it fell. And it's the
Did it
same
make
with
a sound
morality.
though?
What?
Did it make a sound?
Well, it defines sound. Sure, the bird heard it. You know what I'm
Okay.
saying? Like I'm just saying
Did
that
somebody have
objective
to?
reality exists outside of our subjective perception.
Did the bird have to be there though for the sound to have been made?
No, because the tree hitting the ground causes a
Okay,
vibration or perturbation of the air.
gotcha. All right.
So it's like what I'm saying is more so that like objective reality exists outside of our ability to perceive it, right? I mean, you would have to agree if something is objectively true, whether or not I can wrap my mind around it or accurately define the phenomena, it doesn't change based on how I think about it. This would have drastic physics implications, as reality would have to be malleable. Yeah, like morality is objective. I mean, like, sure, it has drastically changed throughout the ages as it pertains to society's interpretation, but rape has always been wrong, whether or not some Viking decided to say that it was actually required to continue his lineage.
Yeah,
Oh, he's
I
still
agree.
wrong. He still raped someone. It's still wrong.
And all ducks are going to hell.
Ducks do not have human spirits. Did you know ducks are like abnormally well endowed?
Yeah, their penises also break off when they're done after the season. And they petrify.
What?
Yeah,
See, these
people
are
find
just
them and think
complete
that.
abnormalities.
Just saying, maybe there's a reason they rape. They're not human.
No, I'm saying like I think that humans and animals are drastically different. But animals do show semblance of morality at times for sure. I think the way the story goes, by the way, is that pre-fall, animals laid together and all in peace. But who knows? Either way, that's an important distinction: is that humans are different, and we know humans are different. We possess a capability entirely independent of anyone else or anything else, and it's very obvious.
So the
Um,
times that animals are moral, is that morality given to them from God then? Like, would God be giving them, like, is it the same kind of morality? It's just they don't really express it as deeply.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. I mean, more animals might be more like NPCs in the sense that there is actual like written code that caused them to do certain things. Maybe it's not that turtle on its back wasn't supposed to die yet, and all of a sudden the moose helps the turtle. Maybe tomorrow he steps on the turtle, right? Because it was the turtle's time to die. I don't know. That's a deep
Right.
question, but I do know that humans are different, um, as we innately know from the age of birth. Like as soon as we're born, like in my opinion, I mean it's hard to judge that. So say that there's a 2-year-old. A 2-year-old automatically wants to go help the other 2-year-old out that's crying or
Mhm.
fell, wants to give him a hug. We just had a baby shower. There were like a 6-month-old and a 2-year-old, or like a year and a half old, and innately the 6-month-old was crying and she reached out to hug the baby, to hug and console the 6-month-old. This is like a year and a half old baby, right? So innately that baby knows, like, oh, this baby's sad and I want to console it.
Yeah, it's mirror neurons or whatever. I don't remember when they start developing, but and then they got like fall test things or whatever for them. They start experiencing self later on. It's interesting to see how it progresses in babies.
Yeah, the fall tests are crazy too. So like I guess one of the main disagreements here is like if there is objective morality, that means that there's a specific order. There's like an objective order. So like how do you get like a linear objective order without like intelligent design, right? Like how do you get that? I mean, I guess this goes back to chaos theory, which again requires it's like very sensitive to initial conditions.
Hmm.
This is
Right.
why I always
So
bring up the morality thing. It's not like an attempt to like drag people through the weeds. I mean, I've never heard a satisfactory answer. I don't really know that one exists.
right, yeah. So like you point to the animals being able to like they're rendering a code that they just know to do this one thing. Um, and it's either God wrote that code specifically for animals so that they NPC around perfectly, or they're picking up on just an objective morality that's written into the fabric of our reality.
Yeah, I mean, maybe there's just like a spectrum. Like I don't know. I love animals. I think that they have a personality, right? So, like our cat has a personality. So I don't dismiss there being some level of morality in animals. I just I acknowledge there's definitely a distinction between us and them. And of course, like when an animal goes and does something immoral, say that the next moose just kicks the turtle back over. Well, humans do messed up things as well, right? Like there are humans that rape people. So like the immoral action of an animal or a person doesn't really give us clear-cut clarity as to whether or not. That's why your duck example is not bad, because seemingly if that's like a practice across the board that consistently happens, that's like the norm across the
Right,
board. Well,
but
that's
the
interesting.
ducks, the female ducks, they obviously, they have the many fake vaginas or dead ends essentially, so that they don't, you know, either that or they want it, and that's why they have so many.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe maybe they're just into that, man. There are there are girls that are. So I don't know. That's a crazy. That's why I think again. I think one of the biggest deceptions ever cast onto man is the conflation of animal and human, which actually means hue of a man. But mankind is not the same as an animal. It just is not. And then evolution obviously specifically states that they are the same. This is insane. This is obviously going to lead to depravity and degeneracy and moral relativism.
Right.
We,
Yeah, I'd say you know that they are near, or they're like, because we evolved, but the morality definitely is not the same. as animals. Though, like we talked about, they shared it. I don't know. Like I still see the evolutionary part of it, that we are animals.
I hear you. Get there. I'm just kidding. But so like say so like in that scenario, there was like this magical moment, and like on this magic moment, bang, morality for humans. Like they just somewhere on this little magical cartoon chart that we're all shown, boom, morality popped in and became a part of the evolutionary process metaphysically.
Well, I mean, the evolutionary aspect of it, I'd say would have happened long before in our evolutionary chain. Morality would have began to evolve along with those species that found working together and not being depraved made, life better.
Well, that's a bit of a conflation, right, between selfish intention and motive and morality. Like morality is independent of selfish intention, meaning like there's some dude in a tribe who's never gotten with a girl because he's super lame. And for him, selfishly, like just taking a girl is the easy way out, but it's wrong to take the girl. It's probably
Look, we don't need to
easier
pick
to
on
go.
Arma right now. It's
Yeah, sorry, Arma. Sorry, I thought you weren't in here anymore. So like basically, like if you, it'd be easier to maybe go just steal people's money instead of earn money, but it's still immoral to do that. Morality is independent of convenience, which comes back to the objective subjective.
right.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah,
well,
I don't know. I think that, dude, this place is very ordered. I mean, there's many different evidences of creation for me. I mean, like if you just look at the ordered nature of the quantum scale, like why would something on that small of a scale have such an order to it? And although seemingly chaotic once we first began to peer into that realm, we are discovering it is not chaotic. It is extremely ordered and reoccurring. Geometric expressions that are symmetric, like insane levels of order on the small scale. And then we look up, and of course we differ here, but I mean we see the sky reset for all recorded history, and it's this intricate, meticulous clock. And whether the Earth's a spinning ball that defies physics or not, it still results in the optical illusion of a perfectly meticulous clock and calendar. Right. Yeah, so it's just like it seems way too ordered for me, man. Like for there to be a singularity that all of a sudden expands and then creates everything, and then boom, it's just like this perfectly ordered existence. I just don't even see like a logical route down there, and that's of course avoiding where that energy came from in the first place.
all right. Should we wrap it up? Maybe open it up for Q&A. Do you have a closing statement at all?
I've talked a lot, but I'll make a bit of a closing. I can relate to you in the sense that like religion sucks, and men are very arrogant, where they run around telling people what a creator thinks of them, and I think that's insane. And to fully understand the creator is futile pursuit destined to oblivion, and so I can relate on your disdain for that. And I would just encourage the separation of moral or relative dogma and religion, and then the actual question of creationism, as I find them to be distinctly different. And I just think that the only logically viable alternative or explanation is that there is some type of creative, intelligent, sentient force that exists outside of the confinement of space-time and matter to give us this like beautifully orchestrated order that we experience. And yeah, that's about it.
Okay. Right. And from my perspective, if that's the case, God made ducks evil for whatever fucking reason. I don't know. But y'all heard it here, people. Witsit Getsit. What we hear from Witsit? Fallacy after fallacy. Nothing but sophistry. He seems to be confused about his subjective morality. Please, people, don't sign any contracts with Witsit. He might own you.
That was your predetermined closing.
Dude, he did that the first time. He ended up with like it's a political hate campaign. It's a smear campaign on you more than a closing on anything. Don't vote for Witsit. Yeah, nailed
It's
it.
pretty funny.
I ad hoc it at the end.
You get it.
Dude, honestly, that was pretty good. That was a pretty intelligent conversation, and may I add, quite
No, it was
respectful.
fun.
Right, quite respectful. Take note, Globers. You can disagree with everything we say, and you don't have to be a dick.
I know. I was waiting. I thought you were gonna have a fallacy counter up on me.
Nah, you weren't actually that fallacious.
Wow.
So you did good.
Does anyone have any questions?
I do.
Okay, what you have to do is you have to grow 2 feet, grow a beard, wear nice clothes, be super nice. No.
Don't forget
And
the
have at least 3 girlfriends.
don't forget the handlebar mustache like Demonstryde.
Yeah, that's a killer, man.
Funny.
Yeah, Armor.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I would have allowed you one retort since they both called you out. I saw you open up and then clam up, so I didn't know if you felt like you couldn't.
I waited too long, you know, when you like when someone was like,
Is that what it was?
the joke like space, what is it called? The joke I don't know, there's just like a sort of window. There you go, the joke window. And I just kind of missed it. I was like, fuck it. But yeah. It was funny. It was funny.
So what you got, man? What's your
No, there was no question. I was just bringing that up. That's it.
I have a question, if it's possible. So we notice the difference in the cognitive part between human and the animals is the prefrontal cortex. And as it has been mentioned, some apes, they have some things, they are mimicking morality, or some action of them, they are leading us to understand that they are a little bit moral. So don't you think, Witsit, the understanding of our concept about the brain is leading to morality? For example, we are able to be moral because our development of prefrontal cortex lead us there, and our cognitive parts are making us to be like that.
Like I said, I think there's a distinction between the brain and the mind and consciousness, which exists outside of material confinement. And although there are some similarities to apes, there are an insane amount of differences. So yeah, I don't see, again, I don't believe in materialism, where everything that exists must come from material, and I think that that's an insane perspective. So I think that morality and consciousness are outside of the brain. The brain simply interprets that data.
Okay, yeah. Like what he's talking about. What about when you get, slightly brain damaged, or the was it the perineum, the middle part of the brain? When that gets cut, sometimes you can have 2 different personalities. There's an instance where you have a theist and an atheist in the same brain.
Oh, that sounds like every atheist.
Yeah. Let's not talk about Ed Freeze like that.
Every atheist is just a theist.
Yeah, atheist.
Yeah, they're just
As in
atheists.
the non. Yeah,
No, they're just
like I'm an a
atheists on the way.
Bigfootist.
Atheist in denial.
No, you're atheist. I'm atheist.
Oh. I don't think atheism exists. I don't etymologically speaking, it's like basically a positive assertion. Or more so, it is a definitive claim that there is no God. I think agnosticism is about as...
Because I'm an agnostic atheist. It's like being. Have you heard the courtroom analogy? Like, if I'm up for murder and I get the not guilty verdict, that does not mean innocent verdict. That just means not committed of being guilty. So the same is for God. God is not guilty of existing. Doesn't mean that he's innocent. It just means he's not guilty of existing.
I get what you're saying. Basically, you don't know, but you just currently aren't convinced that there is evidence of one, or you lean towards there not being one.
I see no evidence. that convinces me that it's pointing in that direction.
Well, let's just re-listen to our debate, bro.
So all the Globers here agree with everything Witsit said. Then I'm gonna take your your silence as implied complicity.
Nice. You guys are coming around.
Does anyone else have any questions? Don't be shy.
I don't think a lot of them want to voice contention to my position at this point.
I think Red Tape did, but he might have left. Yeah, he got muted halfway through, I think.
Why do bad things happen?
Why do bad things happen?
Free will.
Coincidence.
Right, dude. I like how you were like, "Oh, God allows babies to be killed." Like, well, no, the parents poisoned their child while being tricked into think they were doing good, and that has real life consequences. Back in point, dude. Exactly.
Well, yeah, and we have like a very short-sighted view of things, so we're like, he shouldn't allow it to happen. What you're saying is that he should remove the free will of the parents.
Right. Damn.
I mean,
So because he loves us, he must allow that baby to die. Otherwise, things have no consequences. Dude.
Well, so that's why it's very rich when mere mortals play moral judge over a creator, when it's actually an extremely heavy position with immense responsibility. Yeah.
oh, okay, real fast. Actually, now I do have a question because I just remembered something through the debate. So real fast, yeah, through the debate, both sides made really good arguments, but I do think one of the arguments wasn't really like, saw through all the way. So one of those arguments was what is it, like free will, and then you had this like weird thing where it's like you either have free will or you're robots, right? Um, but I find that weird though, right? Because obviously you have people, you have people that have free will, right? And there are some, that believe in God and some that don't, right? Or some that are, good and some that are bad, right? Couldn't you, in theory, like if you're a god, look into the future, see which ones do, believe in God and which ones that are good, and then just make those guys and just forget about the bad ones?
Everyone knows that there is a creator by just looking at nature. It is simply a process of acceptance. And if he was to not allow you to go through that journey or process yourself, there would be no purpose to life.
So it's based off. So I guess purpose is then defined by having bad people.
Decision.
But that's the thing. That's what I'm saying. I feel like you can still have decision. You just, as a god, you just make you only make the good people. You forget about making the bad people. But in a way, you're kind of arguing that you have to have the bad people in order for a decision to matter.
No man is good, as in like thoroughly righteous. We all mess up. And it's just about a process of acknowledging the inevitability of something greater than you and then humbling yourself to that realization. Purpose means meaning, right? So a reason for existence, meaning, purpose. If you have no free will, what would be the meaning of life?
So in this case, amoeba doesn't have a purpose. Logically, if I take your path.
What doesn't have a purpose?
Amoeba, the unicellular animals.
Oh, an
They
amoeba.
all serve a purpose. Introduces moral accountability, and it's much easier and more convenient to be the arbiter of your own truth.
Do angels have free will?
Yes.
Okay, and I apologize if this is out of left field. My internet was messed up and I got here late. But if angels have free will, in Christianity, Satan, original sin, all that, he made his choice. How can God make any promises about the future?
Because he's all knowing.
So there won't be another Satan, right? I guess is the idea.
There's actually an over personification of Satan. In Hebrew, it means Satan, which is actually opposition. But there are some figures, sure. He doesn't tell, the scriptures don't say there's going to be another quote unquote Satan, so I don't know. But they made their own decision. They basically looked over at humans and they were like, this isn't fair. Humans get to experience this wide spectrum of human emotion and make babies. And I just have to sit over here, not limited to material or time. I can fly wherever I want to and transcend. That's not fair. And then the humans are like, the angels have it so made. They get to know for sure there's a creator and they don't have to deal with illness or human emotion. There's no winning from the perspective of a creator.
Right. I mean, but I guess my real question is, um, like, regardless of what type of Christianity you um, adhere to, there are a lot of promises made about the future, whether it's heaven or paradise on earth, what
Uh-huh.
have you. And sin was not, in the original plan, from what I understand. It was introduced, right? And so, how could we have confidence that that it won't be introduced again? You know.
Well, it's already here. It doesn't need to be reintroduced. It's going nowhere. It's here to stay until the end. But yeah,
So you
there
don't
may
have
be a
any.
perfect plan. Say you have a game plan for your football team, but your football team doesn't want to listen to you, and they keep on calling audibles at the line. I mean, it's like, yeah, you may have a plan that's not synonymous with that happening, meaning that there's a perfect way for things to have played out, and although he may have known it wouldn't play out that way, he didn't force it to play out a certain way. I mean, those are distinctly different.
Yeah, and the question is, can he or will he? Do you have like an afterlife belief?
Yeah, 100%. There's a metaphysical realm. We have a spirit, so.
Would you mind? Sorry if I missed it, but would it be okay to detail that a little bit for me?
Sure, there's all kinds of things. I mean, the fact that there's consciousness, intuition, and dreams, which science cannot explain, shows you that there's a metaphysical realm. Of course, the first law that energy cannot be created nor destroyed means it can only be transferred. So, where is all of the energy transferred from? That means there has to be a metaphysical realm. And then, of course, we've even done CT scans of the brain of people during spiritual experiences, and their brain lights up like a Christmas tree during that moment. Science cannot explain the neural pathways. We can't even understand like 10% of the brain, and that's not because of this whole like we don't use 10% of the brain. Actually, it's just we don't understand 90% of the brain. That's where that number comes from. The brain is an interpretive material process of mind and consciousness. And so this all extends beyond physical material confinement. And if you don't think it does, then what are dreams and what are intuition? And so where's your dream take place? And is your, what is astral projection and what is intuition and what are all these things? So yeah, we have a spirit. And if we have a spirit, then energy is not confined to matter and it cannot be destroyed, which means the energy inside of you can only be transferred, which would require an afterlife.
What do you think the afterlife will be like?
That's a great question. There's a huge spectrum of answers through all of mankind for that. I think you actually get to make a personal decision, and I think that your personal experience attached to that energy is left up to you. Meaning, I think that you can choose to not exist, meaning you can cease to exist, or you can choose to eternally exist. I think that's kind of what this is. This life is your decision as to whether or not you want to eternally exist or cease to exist. What is it like? I don't know. I
How
think
do
that it would be
how
pretty
how do you know that
incredible
you're
in many
not
ways
how do you know that you're not living your eternal life right now? It just happens to be on Earth.
because we die.
But how do you know that? Like, how do you know you haven't already died, gone to heaven, and done what you just said?
Oh, like as in reincarnation? I don't personally exclude that
Is
possibility.
that what you meant by live forever?
No, not coming back and living in a physical body again. Just that your personal experience attached to that energy we call a spirit.
Mhm.
You can basically become detached from it and give up your experience, and the energy just goes back to the source. Which I think it actually goes back to the source anyway. But I'm just saying that you extend far beyond your material life. I don't know if you come back. I don't. That's a very deep question. I normally don't talk about it publicly because the scriptures are kind of gray there, and I don't know that everyone's ready for that. I think that if people jump to the reincarnation bit, then they throw out moral accountability because what's the matter? You get to come back.
When it comes to the scriptures, you're talking about Christian scriptures, Old Testament and New Testament, or?
Yeah, but I don't hear it in any religion like
Gotcha.
Christianity.
You
But
just take bits and pieces and incorporate them as they make sense to you, I guess.
yeah, I think the scriptures are true and just heavily grabbled. They're very messed with. A lot of the books have been taken out.
Grabbled.
Yeah, very good verb. Like when you start to look into the Hebrew and you start to look into the Catholic Church giving a decree to remove Enoch from the face of the earth, and you look at Jubilees and you look at books referenced in the scriptures that are MIA, and you look at the name of the Creator being taken out over 7,000 times, you look at mainstream atheism misrepresenting all of the messages and the passages as to condone evil when it doesn't, and you look at all this misrepresentation. I mean, that's certainly not what I believe, and I stand hand in hand with anyone disavowing it, but I just don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Basically, I don't take the Roman Catholic offshoots of Christianity and judge the scriptures by them.
I think atheism are satanic ideologies because, for example, Satan in Hebrew means the opposite one, the guy who's in opposition or the entity who's in opposition.
It doesn't have to be an entity. It just means opposition. Like you can be acting in Satan. You like in fact in the scriptures, the Creator sends an angel as Satan in opposition to the people of Israel because they were being so persistently disobedient.
And in this case, do you think atheists are in opposition about your religion, and do you think they are satanic?
No, I think that satanic is a crazy term people throw around. I mean, if you're devoted to the opposition of righteousness, then yeah, I would say that's satanic. And I think that almost anyone can be satanic if that means opposition to the will of the Creator. But I don't have like this crazy beef with atheists. I think that they're just in a process of inner turmoil. I think they're lying to themselves because they know deep down this. They look around, they know this place didn't just poof here without any type of intelligent design. They know that deep down. In my opinion, I don't think atheism exists. So, like, are they satanic? I mean, that's a broad question. I mean, I wouldn't say that. I know many atheists that are more moral than many quote unquote Christians.
I'm gonna come back if you allow me to have another question, if it's possible. Can I?
Yeah, bro.
Okay, so have you heard me said everything what it have a brain, it have a conscience, and it have a function to be linked to a soul by dreams, by everything what you have been imposed. But
Humans.
there are a lot, not only humans, because there are dogs, they have dreams, and animals, they have dreams. So in the case of an animal that doesn't possess a brain, I'm talking about the pluricellular animals. And you said because everything it have a purpose, but unfortunately they don't have a link to an entity through consciousness. Do you think they really have a purpose, or is just a idea of a purpose?
Their purpose is to serve the system some way. Your question is, do they have a personal purpose? No, I think that humans are distinctly different from even your dog. Certainly like something without a brain. So their purpose
So in
is
this,
good.
so in this case, the animals that are under no, they don't possess a brain, they are under the chaos theory.
I don't adhere to the chaos theory. I think it's ridiculous. I think that even things without a brain are intricately designed to play a pivotal role in the overall system. Everything has a purpose, even if we haven't discovered that purpose yet, which is oftentimes the case. Like
Okay,
bacteria has
thank
a
you.
purpose, or where do we get penicillin from, right?
Not before 1800s.
That's what I'm
LOL.
saying. That's what I'm saying. So we're in a slow, primitive process of trying to
Dude,
discover and scratch the surface of the intricacies and of what was put in place specifically. Like, we are very arrogant to think that we could ever understand exactly how intricately this place was put together. I think time has consistently shown us this, but humans are going to always be arrogant despite that.
Yeah, you got to get comfortable in not knowing eventually.
Yeah. I would say that's the first step. The first step to wisdom, I'd say, would be fear of the creator, and the second would be efficient acknowledgement of what you do not know. Which the ballers hate, by the way. How dare you say we don't know this is 47 trillion miles away?
It won't be necessary to put this argument, but whatever. It's your show.
I'm just here.
So you brought up the globe model. When it comes to rating your certainty, would you say that your religious beliefs are more justified knowledge than like Globers, I guess you'd say, beliefs about the world around them?
Again, I don't like the word religion, but my spiritual beliefs, I think
Spiritual.
they're significantly more founded than people that believe in the globe, because I've actually personally put it to the test in my life and got very specific answers and evidence, as opposed to just believing what men have told me. So, and also, as I just laid out for like the last hour and a half or whatever, like, I have a pretty founded logical position, right, as it pertains to a creator, at least as I see it. And the rest is anecdotal. You know, like me saying a prayer, asking for a wife, open up a 2,000-page book, and it says the Lord said, take a wife. I mean, what are the odds if the first sentence I read in a 2,000-page book after saying a prayer for a wife for the first time in my entire life be the Lord said, take a wife? I mean, to me, that's significant, but I can see why someone else may not resonate with that. I don't know.
Just putting it out there, the perfect bridge hand has occurred. Look up the odds of that.
Bridges aren't built curved because the curve of the earth.
No, sorry. I meant like the game Bridge. Some old ladies were playing together, and one of them got a perfect hand naturally, and the odds of that are just literally astronomical.
Oh, okay.
Just
Well, yeah,
little
sure. If that's
anecdotes.
what I mean, that's obviously an explanation. Is that it's just a coincidence that I said a prayer for a wife one time in my entire life, and then I opened up a 2,000-page book, and the first sentence I read in the middle of the book said, "The Lord said, take a wife and children." I mean, sure, I guess you could say it's a coincidence. I mean,
Is that part of the foundation then too? Like, is that more anecdote for the evidence that you hold?
as it
Personally?
pertains to like the specifics of what I believe, it is a big piece of it. I mean, I'd already believed it at that time, or I wouldn't have been praying for a wife and then opening up a
Right.
Bible, you know. But
It just solidified it a little more.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I had something like that happen a few times, and it's like at the beginning of my whole, like, I would call awakening.
my
It's also
mind.
happened a couple times. So I knew there was a creator before that. I just thought that religion was really stupid and humans would never know. And I still don't think that we'll ever fully know. But yeah, it definitely helped solidify my belief.
I have a question for Demonstryde. Is that how you say it? Your name?
Yep.
Hi,
Demonstryde.
Demonstryde. Have you ever read the scriptures from the front of the book to the back?
Not all the way through. I'm actually like 2/3 of the way through the audiobook form, because I'd like to do it at work. But I did for the Book of Mormon, the Bhagavad Gita, and I'm also working on the Quran.
So I think the difference with the scriptures, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the Abrahamic book, I guess you could say, it's something that you can't just understand. at one time. It's called the living word for a reason. You have to want to understand it. We've been taught a Greek mindset, very linear, and the Hebrew language, it's cyclical. They have different, the pictograph has different pictures for different meanings and things like that. So it's not something that you read once and you're going to understand it. But the fact that that you're possibly reading it, I don't know, from listening, it didn't sound like you understood the scriptures. I'm not trying to dig you at all, because what's so great about it, the scriptures, is you can stand on a verse and have it make sense, but yet it be out of context, and it can mean so many different things. That's why in the end times there's going to be doctrines of demons, and
Right.
we are told, pardon me.
I was gonna say the fact you're saying that points to the validity of it. If you can make many different interpretations, how can you point to one of them and say this for certain is the right one?
Because you have to study, and you have to study history. Have you ever heard of the Reformation?
I've heard the word before, yes.
Oh my
What are
gosh.
you
See, this
referring
is where
to?
I think this is where we mess up as humanity, because I don't know. I mean, I think we're told, a lot of us are like, history is a lie and all that kind of stuff, because it really is a lot. But before I even became a believer, I learned about the Reformation. I was like, wow. So that was in 2010. And then they had the Counter Reformation to counter the Reformation, where these people were trying to keep the Catholic Church was trying to keep people from not reading the scriptures. And Martin Luther exposed some things, nailed a thesis, I don't know, 95 thesis on the wall of the Catholic Church, and said, hey, man, we're getting a couple things wrong. And then that caused a whole storm and everything, and it was a big split.
Are you talking about what happened in the 1500s? I'm just trying to
Yes.
Google it now. Okay.
Yeah.
It says
And
that it's
see,
what created the branch of Christianity.
exactly.
Dude, you gotta
Protest.
watch Heliosorcery. That's for you, Demonstryde. That's your homework.
Yeah, well, and it goes. Yeah, that's a great baseline.
I looked at it. How long is that heliosorcery? Because your video from the other night looked like it was going for 7 fucking hours.
Yeah. So what happened with that was we ran over on talking to the guy because he was so cool and so nice, and we spent way too much time talking to him. So then I forgot to like reset the YouTube, so it went right into a 4-hour shit show with FTFE. So
Heliosorcery is like an hour and 40 minutes.
Oh,
no.
That's digestible.
No, it's like 2. Isn't it like 2.5? It's long, dude.
It's an hour
Yeah,
and
it's almost
42 minutes and 45 seconds.
Yeah.
Oh.
But Demonstryde, it's just there's history behind it, because that's when the protests of, you've heard of the Protestants, and then we get the Society of Jesus. I don't know if you know anything about the Jesuits. They're also the ones that a big group of them have formed the storyline of a globe. They took the existing model, which had the waters above, the firmament, and below Sheol, and then they made a globe out of it. But that's another story. But my whole point is,
oh no, finalize your point. That's fine.
Yeah, just my whole point is that there's history to this book that is verifiable. Caesar, he lived, right? He was named in the book. As many as King David. Nobody's really denying a lot of the other characters in the scriptures, the people in the scriptures. So, I posted just really quickly. I posted in the chat when you guys were discussing, you don't have to die an atheist. That is a choice. That is an absolute choice. Because if you want to know the truth, you can absolutely ask for the truth.
Do you think I don't want to know the truth? Do you think I don't honestly seek for it? Because I do. That's why I have these discussions. I read the books I read. It sounds to me like you think I'm just plugging my ears and sticking my head in the sand, when it feels like for me I'm digging deeper into true self and what is real.
I specifically believe that personally. That's why I said, I know you're not gonna die an atheist as you so boldly proclaimed.
Hey, Demon, I got a question. Have you ever looked into have you ever like got into meditation?
Yeah.
Okay, so you know how to meditate. Have you ever meditated on the scriptures in the Bible?
So the type of meditation I've done, it's completely mindfulness, where you sit there and you try and not think about thoughts. It's really hard to do. Like you just sit there and just try and breathe and just focus on, like, the feeling of the air going into your nose and out. And every time you notice your brain straying and bringing something up, you'll be like, why is my brain trying to pick this thought up or that thought up? And you just constantly keep pushing them away, and you can actually get to some pretty deep spots.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I'm talking about. So once you get to that state where where that state of non-thinking, you're just completely absorbed in the moment. When you're like it just feels like your senses are completely still and everything is just, you're just like blissful awareness in the moment. Then, like something that I started doing a long time ago, you can take scripture from any book. It could be the Bible, it could be something Jesus said, it could be something Buddha said, and you meditate on that scripture, on what that thing is, and you just like, what I learned to do is how to just be just as still and receptive as possible. For a Christian way of saying it would be listening for that still small voice. You just receptive to an answer. And what happens is, like, when you do that, you get a powerful, powerful fucking answer that will like melt your face off. And that to me, that's what's going within. The kingdom of heaven is within you, and working on it like that and doing the inner work like that. So like, I agree with Witsit. Like when I don't like hate atheists or think, I agree. I don't believe in the same God that you believe in, but it's like there is something powerful that you can be still and you can listen to, and it it's like I think I don't know like what kind of like if you're meditating, if you're actually like sitting down, but like I'll just sit being still for like 30-40 minutes, and that's when you get into the deep stuff. If you're just trying to like mentally not, if you're trying to like just walk around and not think of things, that's not the same.
No, specifically like sitting down and ridding your mind of thoughts. I guess for me though, I'd say, yeah, like there's truth to God being in you. I'd say that, we all are a part of the universe, it's a part of God. I've had personal anecdotal experience that convince me that there's more to this reality that we can see. We might possibly all be the same consciousness, you know, in a fractal form. Um, but to sit there and how do you know that the voice you heard wasn't just your own consciousness speaking back to you? Because I've experienced that. How do you determine between that, your own voice, and what you're claiming as a god?
For me, it's like it's usually like it took me a while to get to get to that place where I'm like so still and just patient enough. And then it's like what happened like and then you get a message, you get like this idea just out of nowhere just pops into your head, and it with it comes this like just I know you could say materially a powerful chemical reaction with it at the same time. And it's just like and then the answer you receive is like, you know is so powerful, and it's like exactly what you needed to, it's like the exact message that you needed to hear, and
It's like very clear, and it's like there's no. It's like an epiphany. It's like a very clear moment of realization.
Have
I'm
you
not big
ever
on. I've never experienced some thunderous outside voice or anything like that. It's I think that our we have an antenna that receives the signals, so
have you
I think
ever
that
been
you're going
like
to always interpret it through your consciousness.
have you ever
so
had
so
like a oh sorry.
oh yeah, once yeah, I'll just say like one thing. So you can go into it, right? And when you're in that still place of mind, you're in that still state of mind, then you can ask any question you want. You can ask what is God? You can ask that question every single day for a month and you'll get powerful fucking answers that just make perfect sense. Like, and you can meditate on, you know, like there's so many things. Like you meditate on like I and my Father are one. That shit is powerful. That's why I find the Bible particularly like what the things that Jesus say particularly interesting, because I find when I meditate on what he said, it's just for some reason it's like 10 times, just so much more powerful than other scriptures that I read and meditate on.
See, for me, I guess meditation is the absence of having thoughts you can hear in your brain and think. Where for you, it sounds like doing a mantra, essentially, like repeating the thing over and over in your head.
No, you just have to ask it once. You just go, "What is God?" And then you just sit in stillness and silence, and you're receptive, and you wait for a response. If you don't wait for a response and you don't hear one, and then you just continue your day, and you can ask again later or whatever. But I mean, there's it's once I started doing it like that, I can't see reading scriptures of anything any other way. It's like it's all about going within and meditating on these things.
Have you ever had a problem you had for a while, and then like you sleep on it essentially, and when you wake up, you've now found that you have the solution for it in your head? Was that given to you by God, or is that possibly your subconscious working its way to the surface through a dream?
Well, I think, I mean, I don't think God really. I think God is always giving us everything that we need. We just have to learn how to become an instrument and be receptive and allow that gift He's giving us at all times. And like, or I would say, I don't know if God's a man or woman, a father, mother, God, whatever. But so I think that's like the metaphysical work. Um,
Let's say like, okay, think about it like this. So I say you have like a conscious antenna, and there are all these signals constantly being sent down to you, but you're not receiving them. It's like the creator is the, I hate the word embodiment's not good, of course there is no body, but like the embodiment of truth, and in the form of, let's say, frequency or something is how the information is delivered. And it's about becoming receptive to that. I think that the creator is unchanging. I think that we receive the answers as we seek them humbly, right? Like I don't know if that makes sense. Like you swim in a wave of information, or like an ocean of information, and you have to tune your antenna via
There's definitely truth
humility.
to that. It's once you become receptive, once you open up and you're willing to accept the thing. I feel like um, you'll definitely see things differently. It may even appear like it's been given to you. Like my anecdotal experience, I had to open up and ask for help, and then I was profoundly changed. But at no point do I think it's anything other than my internal workings. It wasn't. It was like a God fixing me, talking to me, healing me, but ultimately it was indistinguishable from self.
Yeah, but you think you asked yourself for help?
I don't know. It's possible that, like I said, maybe we're all God and we're just living a singular life away from our existence as one. Like I'm
There's no
you
way
and
we
you're
could be
me.
synonymous to a God, right? Like we could have a piece of the creator within us. I do believe that actually, but I think that's what the
Hmm.
spark of life is. But just logically speaking, if we're just a minute portion, then we can't be synonymous to the totality of the energy, right? Like we can only be a piece of it, which means that there's an energy significantly bigger than we are.
But like David was showing me this earlier, like a hologram, even if we are just a snippet of it, we would retain all of the information of the whole. Like you can take a holographic image and cut just the corner of it, and it holds the whole image in just the corner. Now, if you cut it up into a billion pieces and scatter it, it can, exist individually, but also still have all of the information.
Okay, but that overall hologram is significantly bigger than that little piece,
Yeah,
even if it reflects a bit of it, right?
yeah, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I think that's basically what it all, like in my opinion, I think religion sucks, but it all comes down to genuinely seeking and loving truth. Easier said than done. I think almost everyone will say that they seek truth, but I mean, you know, who cares? I mean, the truth is like this movie that only like the creator can see, and you and him know. So I think that's what it really is, and I think that a lot of people kind of tap out, right? They seek truth relative to convenience.
Said Highlander wants to say something.
Yeah, I just want to ask the religious people, is God the source of everything?
Yes, and I'm not religious.
He is, yeah?
Yeah, of course.
Right. So if he is the source of everything, then he also must be the source of lies, deceit, dishonesty, and evil. Therefore, your God is a liar, deceitful, dishonest, and evil.
No, because like that's where free
No,
will
no,
comes
no,
in.
no, no, no. You can't
You're,
have it both ways. You can't have God being the creator and the source of everything, but not the bad shit. He's
You gonna
only
let him
the source
respond?
of the good shit. Yeah.
Just let him respond.
so you can either cast your net to the right, or you can cast your net to the left, right? You have a choice. If you cast your net to the right, you're not going to lie, you're not going to cheat, you're not going to steal, you're not going to murder. If you cast it to the left, you have that choice. But that's just like you're just being, I mean, that's all like ego. That's all that like you thinking that it's just, I don't know, that to me that's just being out of alignment from God. So you can choose to be out of alignment from God. That doesn't mean that God is evil. You can choose, you can choose to fall, and you can choose to do a bunch of fucked up shit or whatever. That doesn't mean that, that means that you decided to be out of alignment with life, with truth, with love. That was your choice. That's not God's choice. God did not tell you to do those things. You're just,
But men want to blame God for their choices and everything that's
Hold on.
wrong and done wrong,
Right. Hold on a second, right?
and throw out every
Right.
man that
I
chose to
never
do that
hold,
shit. It's a
hold on.
choice.
Hold on. I never said anything about any choices that I make or any choices that you make or any
I know,
choices that
but you
my
listen.
hold
You
on,
said
let
he
me
created this, so he is this.
see.
But the truth is,
Right.
he created it, so you had a choice and you chose
No
it.
point talking if you're just
Okay,
gonna
yeah, just let him finish.
right. I never said about any choices that I made or that you made or as mankind as a whole has made, right? All I am saying is if you see God as the source and the creator of everything, then he must be the creator of lies, deceit, dishonesty, and evil. Yeah, he must be. Yeah.
All right, check this
Well,
out.
yeah,
Now, you
that's
may
the
not have heard.
opposition in this dualistic world where you have free will and you're free to choose. Yeah, exactly.
Correct. You may not have.
I'm not
You maybe didn't
talking
hear that
about
part of the debate,
humans.
Highlander. But listen, I addressed this in our debate. Okay.
I'm talking about choice, bro. Because if listen, evil is in your deeds, and you choose your deeds.
Right, but outside
Right.
of even like the personal decision, Highlander, listen, okay? If there was to be creation, you have two choices. One is that there is no free will, which means you're just robotic. There is no reason or purpose to life. The other option is that it incorporates free will, which means that you can make your own decisions. Now, if there is free will, then you have to have a decision to make, which means everything has an equal and opposite reaction. All energy reciprocates. If you have the ability to make a righteous decision, well, in order to make that decision, you have to have a decision to make, meaning you'd have to have the opposite of righteousness as an option, or there would be no decision to make. Thus, there would be no free will. Thus, there would be no purpose. So, just because he created the natural order that gives you the decision does not mean that he himself is evil or a liar. That just means that there's a natural reciprocation of energy built into creation so that you can have a free will to choose between the two, right or wrong.
Again, I wasn't talking about any choices that I make with my free will. Yeah. I'm not talking about humans at all.
How
I
does
am just talking
how
about.
does
I
evil
am
or
just. I
lies
am
exist
just
without choice?
talking about the Creator Himself.
Listen, how do the attributes that you described exist without choice? How are they separate? I would like to know.
Right. Again, you have to take it back to its source. Yeah. For us to have choice, yeah, the Creator must have created the ability to have choice. Yeah. So if there is a creator, he created the ability to have choice. Yeah.
We already gave you that
He
he
also
created the opposition good and evil. That's dualistic.
right. So
Right and
he
wrong.
Created
Yeah,
both.
we
Yeah.
gave you that.
he, he then must be the source of everything. You can't say
He
he was the
is.
source. He is
But
the
evil
source of.
comes in this world through your actions. So does lies.
Yeah, he is the
Otherwise,
source.
without your action, there is no evil, there is no lies.
Yes, Highlander, he is the source of there
Hello?
being an evil option because he
Not
made everything. So you now have the flip side to the coin. You're conflating him making the choice possible with him choosing the evil and being a
Exactly.
liar himself, which
He
makes no
created
sense.
this, so he must be that. Just like I build Chevelles, so I must be a fucking Chevelle.
I built a
can I
gun, so when someone uses it to kill someone, I must be a murderer.
Maybe,
can I say something?
sorry.
Okay, I would like to address this a little bit, I mean, in a different direction. It also, I wanted to say it about when we were talking about why is there suffering. If you don't have suffering in that contrast, you don't know how good life can be. So you don't know good without the bad. That's all I wanted to put in there.
That is correct. It's a very
Maybe
simple, logical conversation. I mean,
Yeah, I agree that without evil, you couldn't know true love. There has to be a contrast.
yeah, if you're going to live in righteousness, how can you choose to do something righteous if there's no choice? In order to have a
So,
choice, you have to have
so, but
options.
did God
how
love
does
us
God
before there
know
was evil?
exactly? Yes.
What was the question?
How did God love us before he made evil?
Well, I think evil personally is a human concept, and it's an attribute that humans, in their human reasoning, apply to an unknown source that they can't even fathom.
But
That's my
without
opinion.
without evil, how can God know love?
How you're asking how can God
Uh,
know something?
these are all attributes of the creation which you want to attribute to the creator, which there is no way, shape, or form you could know anything about.
How could God know something? He exists outside of any confinement of knowledge.
Well,
Right,
if
but if
God, no, sorry, you go, you take it, gamer.
I'm sorry, this is your show, but yeah, if it's possible for God to know what love is, before He's created anything, and God to have no evil in His heart, if He knows what love is, then that means it's possible to know good without knowing bad. That's all. But so it's just a logical disproof.
If you're a God.
Well, that's an assumption, right?
No, it's not.
It,
No, it's a logical necessity that if some type of creative force exists outside of the confinement of space, time, and matter, then he's not simultaneously limited to the confinement of space, time, and matter.
Right, but
Well,
how do you
also,
know that a human being cannot know good without experiencing bad? Right, like
Ugh.
well, you know it's possible, right? We know it's possible to know what good is without knowing what bad
well, what
is.
about appreciating? What about appreciating the good?
Well, they couldn't even know it. They couldn't even know it. And of course, there is also the aspect that if the creator is some form of energy, we'll call it, well, that energy automatically has a reciprocative, what's the word? Anyway, a reciprocal
Yeah.
nature. So
Hey,
you have like the balance of the equations.
I'm kind of with Gamer on that. Who here has never made a baby smile?
There you go.
You think the baby knows what makes it feel good and what is good and true in love at that
Yeah,
moment before we even download anything to them?
yeah. I think the baby's born knowing what makes it smile. Yeah.
So then it's evil that beats it into them that they must have it to keep the good because they had good without the evil.
Have
They
Well,
can't.
what?
it could be pain too. It could be hunger. You know, it could be just discomfort in general.
Well,
The
that's
opposition
all
of
suffering.
beauty.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
How
Hunger is suffering.
and we're also
So
pre-assuming that God didn't, like, he created evil with us. Like, he could know the difference beforehand, too.
That's what I was saying. Yeah, just being
Well,
that energy he is
yeah,
himself,
well,
it has its reciprocal
the
nature.
thing is, before he made humans, right, he had angels, yeah? And he cast out Lucifer, who then became what a lot of people call Satan, yeah?
No.
No, Gadriel.
Yeah, no one ever, the people that talk about the Bible, they don't know it, but it doesn't matter. The point is that the angels had free will. So like again, the same answer remains and it's being skated past. How could you have free will and the ability to make a choice if there is no decision to choose between?
Well, limited free will, I suppose. Like what if, just, this is silly, but what if you decided to try to hurt somebody else, right? Who did not want to be hurt? They had the option of choosing not to be hurt.
Okay, and then they have the free will to defend you off.
Right. So, in a world like that, you could do no harm to anyone who doesn't want harm done to them, but still retain free will. Um, and so
What?
it goes back to what I was saying earlier. Does the world have to be this brutal? Like is this as good as it can get?
Well, no, if there weren't a bunch of like Globers around, but I'm joking, but like
Oh, I know.
sort of because
Well,
like atheistic nihilism and
let's not be
materialism,
coy. Most suffering is caused by man's hand.
Yeah, why is it so
Not some
complicated?
unseen force. It's men refuse to respect each other. Men refuse to love each other. Men refuse to help each other. And this is what 90% of the world's problems is.
And men think they're their own gods, and they don't like moral accountability or linear code of ethics. And I don't know why this is so complicated. Bad things happen because people choose to do things that result in bad things.
Yeah, it's really,
Yeah, but
like, straight up
we
logic.
wouldn't have the knowledge of bad things like lying and being deceitful, being dishonest, cheating, if God didn't already create that knowledge and give that knowledge to the angels and give that knowledge to us.
But the alternative is that we would be robots, have no free will, and life would have no meaning.
Yeah, what would be the point of
Yeah,
the creation at that point?
yeah, if he created you to love him, but you don't know anything other than love, how genuine would that love be?
Would you guys rather exist as robots?
No,
What
I'd
about
rather be.
parents? Parents, we have no control after a little while about our children. They have their own mind.
Right,
Free
but
will. They have their own mind.
And you let them go ride their bike outside, even though they may fall and scrape their knee. You don't tell them they can't leave their house and ride their bike like they want to because they may fall. So the people are going to go out there and make mistakes, but they're free to go ride their bike.
Bro,
And then
The
they become
alternative is that
adults.
you're a robot.
my
I was
issue
so.
is, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
My issue really comes from how before humanity, before the first angel sin defied God, things were, better, perfect even, and how so many promises are made about how they will again be better in the future, and how that can be possible, right? And yet the suffering we're undergoing right now still be justifiable.
Justifiable. Again, the
Means
suffering is
it's a
the.
means to an end. You need to
Why do you,
learn something.
why do you keep putting the suffering on the creator when it's actually man that does it?
But why couldn't he have made us in a condition where we did not have to do this to one another to learn? He couldn't have just given us the knowledge to begin with?
Bro,
That
that's what we're
would
talking
mean
about.
that we had no free will, thus
Which
we
would
would
be
be
robots.
robots, thus there would be no purpose. Why does that keep getting skated past?
Well,
I
That's
think
the
they're
because
doing it on
alternative.
purpose.
if
There's
there's
no way
always
you're not
going to be
doing
free will, then there will always be this type of suffering, right? Things will never improve.
See,
Okay.
to me, that's a transfer of
They can improve.
accountability from myself and my responsibilities to my creator and saying he should have maintained all my responsibilities for me.
Because
That
people
just
don't
doesn't
like
make sense.
they don't like personal responsibility. So basically your question now is, well, then how can the scriptures be back? How can it back up their claim there'll be a moment where everything is perfect again? Well,
Exactly.
basically everyone goes through this trial period where they get to choose to follow the creator or not. And once you go through all this and choose to follow the creator, and then you're in that second portion of time, if you will, like who's going to turn their back on the creator and no longer live righteously once they went through all of this test and chose to be righteous? That's basically what prevents it, is it weeds out the people that don't want to be righteous.
Okay,
Yeah, my
so
father used to say it like this: "Your faults are my failures, and the same will be true for you and your children."
there will be a group of people that have free will yet choose not to sin. Okay, why didn't we just start there?
We did well. Okay, this is how it all started according to the scripture. But
Yeah, according to the book, that is where we started, and then one came that just
Exactly, and how do we know that won't
chose.
happen again?
wait, why can't you address the point, which is that the
Still-
alternative is that we have no purpose.
Right, you're talking about why can't he just make it perfect? So in that sense, it would just be that you're a slave, uh, created in pure love, knowing only love, and your only purpose is to worship God and give Him love. That's not very genuine because you don't have a choice to love somebody else.
It won't even benefit him. And I'm asking you, can you specifically address that the alternative would be life with no purpose?
Okay, sure. Is life going to be purposeless in the future when the only ones who remain are ones who've chosen to love God?
Well, actually, even in that moment, it says that some people still choose to rebel with one final
Yeah, I
hurrah.
don't think you'll ever breed that out. It's human nature.
Okay,
So,
so that's my
so the
point.
ideal that the road to success is paved with failure, and that would be true at all levels. It's always trial and error.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, and I do think that we're all individually accountable. The world is what we make it. But my point is, right, like that the it seems like an empty promise, the future that we're promised. And to say that if we were just made that way to begin with, we would be robots, but somehow we're not robots in that future. It it's a conflict.
No, it's not, because you chose to be in that future.
Also,
You
the
actually chose
scriptures
to be a part of that in the future. So that's the opposite of a robot.
the
But
scriptures
the
say
choice
that
remains to sin.
Because you chose to go be there, bro.
If the game of life wasn't difficult, it wouldn't be like there'd be no that would not be a very fun adventure to go on, you know? If you figure it all out at the age of 5 and then you just I don't know, what like doesn't make any sense.
Like an NBC robot, you had your life is all predetermined, and there's no decisions to make, and you're just there without any decision. I mean,
Well, they are
Well,
predetermined by God. God, like, made you. He made everything, and knowing everything about you, he technically predetermines your life for you.
I mean, that's
no,
like
that's what I'm saying. It's a conflation between determining what you do and knowing what you do.
what you just described is like watching Twitch instead of buying and playing the game. Pretty weak.
well,
Right, but like if I knew what was going to happen at the end of the Twitch stream and I didn't tell the person like, "Hey, you're going to die at the end." You know.
He does tell us.
if you see somebody about to hurt somebody else and you could stop it at no risk to yourself and choose not to, are you guilty?
How many times do you think he does stop it?
Yeah,
so
but if you don't,
in the scriptures it says that death is an enemy of God and that it is the last thing to be abolished. So in Adam we're all dying, but in Christ we're all made alive. So I think everybody's just got a really important lesson to learn, and you can't learn it without the contrast of suffering.
Yeah, I don't even know why it's eluding the grasp. Like it's very simple, man. Like, can you answer this question for me? Okay, if those are your two options, one is that you have free will, which means you have the right to make decisions and choices, but that means you have to have like a decision to make, so good or bad, right? With different things, you have a decision to make, so that's your option A: free will, existence, decisions to make. Option B: there is no evil. Evil doesn't exist at all. There is no wrong. There is no right and wrong because there's nothing to compare right to. There is no evil. But you don't get to make any decisions. You have no free will, and you're just robotically there. Okay?
is God a
Which one
robot?
would you rather be, bro?
Does God have free will?
Yeah, yes.
So God can do bad?
Yeah, but he's just perfect and righteous.
No, it's when he does bad, it is perfect.
When does he do bad?
Well,
He
I
can
mean,
make all
bad
bad
based.
things good.
Yeah,
So
based
he
on what
can.
we would consider good or bad, God can do those things, but to God, they wouldn't be good or bad. They just would be.
Well, okay. Well, you notice how I asked you a very point blank question and you repeatedly respond to me with a question instead of like, again, why don't you just answer my A or B? Which one would you want to be?
Well, I was trying to point out that it's a false dichotomy.
What's the third option?
Free will without the ability to do evil things to other people.
So what are you making decisions about? You're saying like no decisions to make with good. What decision can you make without there being a negative decision? Name one.
Could you repeat that? Sorry.
Can you name one decision that you could make in a free will existence where there wouldn't be a negative choice?
Yeah. Well, so I would propose a world where we all have full control over what happens to us. It's hypothetical, right? So if somebody chooses to do something that would in any way have a negative result to me, I would be aware of that and be able to avoid it, basically. You still have free will, right? But since everybody has free will and full autonomy, negative results can be avoided.
Really? So what about when a woman's pregnant?
Can you elaborate?
So if a woman's pregnant and she's doing stuff just for her, but it's going to negatively affect the baby. So she eats tons of McDonald's and then the baby comes out sick.
Well, in this hypothetical world, right, the baby would be able to choose whether or not the mother's actions actually affect the child.
Oh. So they're choosing between good and evil.
It's
Bad
purely
and good.
hypothetical,
So they're
but
still
yeah,
having the choice of bad, you see?
right. But whether or not it actually has an effect on us, like, is the point.
This seems like a pretty simple thing here, man. Like in order to have a decision, you have to have a decision, right? I mean, it's very simple. Like, I don't have any decision. Or basically you're saying like this beautiful, perfect world, where you can say, I want to eat that apple or that orange, right? You don't have any like meaningful, substantive decisions to make. Well, what beauty is love if you don't know what the absence of love is? What
So
beauty is happiness if you don't know what the absence of happiness is? What's the
let's
benefit of worshiping a creator if you don't have the decision not to worship the creator?
let's accept your proposal. Doesn't that mean things will never improve?
No, because there's lots of people that are going to choose to do evil, and they will eventually be taken care of. They'll be eliminated from the game because they
Why
chose
are
to do
they here?
evil. They still got to experience it. They got to play the game. They chose to knock all the pieces off the board and be evil. So now they're out of the game. That's why it says it'll be blotted out as if it was never there.
So
So
people who don't
I
choose
think
to do
eventually
evil,
that the people that don't long for truth and what is good and righteousness, well, they basically are saying, I don't like this game. So you don't have to play the game anymore. You even have the decision as all the way down to whether or not you play the game anymore. You're not even forced to play the game. People think so because we live a human life, but imagine what is 70, 80 years relative to forever. So you get to choose whether or not you eternally exist or cease to exist. Like there's so much free will in this game that it's like very short-sighted to complain, but that is human nature.
so do you
This is
believe
what
that
Eve,
people will
Eve
choose to stop doing evil one day?
Yeah.
Don't they still have free will at that time?
Yeah, I don't think that free will will ever go anywhere.
Right, exactly my point. Like, so it's a false dichotomy to say you either have free will, or like free will is dependent on evil. You can't say that.
Yeah, yeah, I can. They
And at the same time, say one day nobody will make the choice to do evil, but they'll still have free will.
technically they could make the choice, but this is the whole thing, right? 'Cause I have to go do something real fast, but this is how I look at it. So say you make the angels, right? The angels have everything they want. They live perpetually. They have all kinds of abilities. They're not limited to like material or anything. They can do all kinds of stuff. they still complained, still bucked the system, still chose to try to leave, still chose to not actually follow the order of things. Okay. So then you create a system where it's like, okay, well, now these people live in material bodies and they're going to have to struggle. They're going to have to go through this huge spectrum of human emotion. They're going to have to fight temptations. They're going to have to choose to do right. They're going to have to learn as they go. And they're going to have to make a conscious decision to try to consistently pursue truth and righteousness. They're going to have to actually earn it. They're going to have to fight through it. They're going to have to struggle through the game to try to attain righteousness. They're going to have to truly want it and sacrifice for it. So much so that they'll be ostracized, they'll be attacked, berated, blah, 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 blah. They'll be reviled for his name's sake, all this crazy stuff. Once you make it through that, who's going to go through all that, then get to the part where you have eternal existence, you don't have material confinement, you don't have illness, you don't have sadness, you don't have tears. Why would you go from that whole struggle then to get to the prized situation and then still throw away the prize? The angels threw away the prize because they didn't really realize what all came with, like how blessed they were. Now humans have like basically the best of both worlds where they get to suffer through it and realize what they're missing out on, earn it, then get it. Basically, it's going to eliminate the person that would go through all that, make all those struggles and sacrifices in the material world, put others before themselves, etc., then get to this next realm and then be like, oh, well, I want to burn it to the ground and go back to doing something wrong. So that's how I view the whole thing. And I think that it's very short-sighted for humans to judge the creator. But I got to go do something with my baby real fast.
Can I ask a question? Don't you think that the reason why we have the knowledge of good and evil because of Eve eating the fruit is why we're even having this discussion at all? Our knowledge of good and evil is making us think so carnally about it, and we have an answer.
I think that religious people want God to be all good. I mean, the gentleman asked earlier, can God do evil? And Witsit replied, yeah, he can, but he doesn't because he's all perfect and righteous. What does that mean when he does evil? It's a perfect evil?
No, he mostly locks people up and stubborn.
You know,
so, however you want to take that.
So I would actually say that I don't think that God is capable of doing evil. Like to me, I'm like, God is truth, God is life. I don't think God is capable of being the opposite of the truth. I think that evil is like the lie of all lies, right? So you have to me, it's just a giant pile of shit. It's all just a bunch of lies and illusions and it's very, very challenging to work through. And if you don't do the work, then you can become like a victim of this, like the illusion and the materialism and all the lies that are told. And then you become a very lost, sick, twisted, person. And that sucks, but that's just kind of how it is.
But didn't
I just think that you don't have the right to yield or even try to understand.
I mean, we have already established that God is the source of everything. Therefore, he is the source of evil. Yeah? So you can't say that he is all good and he does all good and he never does anything wrong when he is the one that created lies, deceit, dishonesty, and evil doings.
No,
Yeah?
it was man that originated or started telling lies and lies for their own ego, for their own selfish reasons, for their own individual bullshit or whatever. Like that's not like that. That's just not how I see it at all.
Sounds like the mentality of like victimhood. I mean, it's like nobody wants to be responsible for themselves.
No,
it's all his fault. I didn't say that God created everything.
It sounds like you want. It's like the famous phrase that I hear loads of times from religious people: "All praise be to God." Right? All glory to God. Why does God get all the glory for all the good things? Right? And why do the religious people never put any of the bad shit that happens on God? Why is it when Hitler massacred all that Jews, why didn't the religious people stand up and say, God bless you, that was God that done that? Yeah, God's responsible for that. Because you don't want your God to be responsible for the bad shit that happens.
Do you have any children?
Me? Yes.
Right. Do you have any adult
I have
children?
2 girls and I have a granddaughter.
Oh, nice. Congratulations. Very nice. So they're grown children. Do you have full control over what they do and what they say?
Right? If your
No.
child kills someone, is it your fault?
I didn't say.
Yes or no?
Right. So when
Oh, so you won't
Did you
answer.
create your children?
Hold
Let him
on.
think.
So, right. So that's not my fault, right? But if my daughter goes out and saves someone's
Why
life,
is it?
right?
Why is it not your
Let
fault?
me, why won't you ever let me finish? Why do you feel the need to talk through people? I mean, it wasn't
Because
just
you
me.
listen.
It
Because
was
you
it was
stammer around for 20
Witsit as
fucking
well.
minutes. You can't use a short, concise sentence, man.
I was just
It's
on
simple
mute
to
for 20
answer.
minutes.
It's
Fucking
simple
hell.
to answer. It's simple to answer. No, if my
I just
child kills
answered it,
somebody,
right?
it's not my fault because they have free will.
If you didn't interrupt me and actually listen, right? I said, no, that's not my fault. But
Yeah, I heard that.
right. So yeah, so why wouldn't you
But
let me finish?
if they help somebody,
Jesus, right?
that's your fault. Yeah.
Right. Do you even know how a conversation is meant to work? Right. So
Yeah, it
I
doesn't
said,
include a bunch of
right.
crying and
Michael,
stammering
let him
around.
talk, dude. Let him talk.
Can somebody talk to this guy and let him understand how a conversation is meant to work, and then we can progress?
Yeah,
Oh
sentences
my
have an
god,
end
dude.
point. You know, you wait until they're done, and then you interject. Usually,
Right. So my answer to that is no. I am not responsible for that. But then again, if my daughter goes out and saves someone's life, have I to get the glory for that? Because that's what you're doing with God. When you say all glory to God, and
My dad taught me how to swim.
when
I
something
mean, what?
happens and you say thank God for that, yeah.
Because
Why is
well,
it you're thanking God for the good stuff and not the bad?
no. I just had a little cat die, in November, and I thanked Father for the time that I did have with this little cat, and it helped ease the pain a little bit. I
What's
mean, it's not his fault. I mean, life is happening here, and there's a really good
I don't
passage that I. Does somebody want to say something?
no, go ahead, please.
Like and a friend of mine, her cat just died, and she wanted to blame God. I'm like, why? Why is it that you're blaming God? Why don't we accuse somebody else? But to your point is because I never was that, and I want to learn to give him the glory so that I don't take the credit for it, because we live in such a society of me. I did this, I did that, I'm next, I'm this. And it's like, the Bible talks about how in the latter days people are going to be lovers of themselves. And that's where I think the lady, sorry, I didn't catch your name. I tried to find you. That was talking about the knowledge of good and evil. We just want knowledge. And so for me, it is new to give glory to the Most High for everything, good and bad. Thank you so much for that opportunity. I'll learn better. And it's like a peaceful feeling, like I'm not alone. I have a purpose, and the scriptures, are not easy to read. I'm definitely going to say they're not easy to read, but to study them, like really quickly, one last thing. Like I was listening to a study last night, and sure enough, I looked. God knew. I like to call him Yah, a version of Yahuwah, Yahweh. God, when you read Genesis 2 about the apple, the fruit, he knew. He says, I'm reading like the Greek version, for knows God that in the day you eat, like he already knew it was going to happen. He's saying when you eat it, when you eat that fruit, it wasn't like, oh, I'm telling you not to eat it and you're going to eat it. I didn't even get that. And I've been reading the Bible for 5 years. So each time you sit in front of it and humble yourself and surrender, then you know, it makes more sense. So
there's a lot of good examples like that. Like if you think about like, kids are a good example, because I was thinking about it as like, you know, I used to do a lot of drinking and drugs and shit in my young 20s. I don't do any of that anymore. But it's like, if I had a kid, I'd be like, I would want to sit him down. I'd want to teach him about being, you know, like I'm like, I know you know, you have the option to be a stupid kid, so I'm going to educate you on how to be safe. And if you ever want to do any things, you can do them here with me in a safe environment. And I can, you know, because I don't want you to be an idiot and, you know, learn how to take drugs from a fucking 14-year-old. You know, it's like, you know that he's going to make a mistake. That doesn't mean that, you know, it's like that's just like the story. That's like the one story that repeats itself.
Hey, Len, do you have some good questions? You know, so just keep asking. And
like, and the other one is like we're saying like you know, like Hitler killed all the people. Or like there's multiple narratives surrounding that, but just for the sake of the conversation, like God, Hitler is not God. No, like I don't know where. So your logic is not. Hitler was a man. If he did those things, then that's not God doing those things. That's a man doing that. That's us choosing to do something.
Well, I think it goes back
I'm not
to.
saying. Sorry, on you go. Sorry, I apologize. On you go.
That goes back to, you know, like whether or not you know, you can stop somebody from being hurt by another with no risk to yourself. You know, in that situation, I mean, Highlander really, I should have let him go, but I want to speak for him. You know, God saw that happen, could have intervened. It didn't have to happen, and chose not to. And so in that way, you know, it is on him. All suffering is on him ultimately because he made it this way.
So yeah, but the alternative is that you're a robot for the 50th time.
Yeah, it couldn't be you were unwilling to lay your life on the line for another. Couldn't be that now, could it?
I'm an ex-soldier and I've put my life on the line for other people.
Me too, brother. Thank you for your service. So I don't see a problem with.
I want to
listen,
thank Witsit for the debate. I'll probably catch you guys later.
Bye.
All right,
Nice to talk to
all
you.
right, Demonstryde. But can I ask who here